Oh, hell, they call the Safety Man.
Oh, y'all get your stuff on. Get everything on, man.
They call the Safety Man. I'll be in the back.
Here comes the clipboard, man.
Wonder if he brought something to eat.
Hello and welcome to Safety Man Comin, the podcast about the people behind the cones on the roadway. Our guest this week is me. Real life has gotten in the way for me and also for some of our guests, and that's okay. That kind of stuff happens. And one of the first things you learn in construction is you got a plan. Sometimes we got to change the plan. Things happen. So we're just going to roll right along and dig into the old Safety Man Comin mailbag and answer some questions. All right, so digging down deep for the first one. Let's see. The first one comes from Megan, and it says, what do they use for sun protection? It's a great question. So the regular things that everybody else uses for sun protection. Using sunscreen of some sort, wearing long sleeves, hopefully something that is light and breathable. Lighter colors versus darker colors. Darker colors are going to absorb heat, so you don't want to look like you're on your way to a Johnny Cash concert in the middle of August. So lighter long sleeves. We use extendable brims on hard hats that are made to fit on the hard hats and keep the sun off of you. We utilize some of them go on your hard hat and have like a flap on the back that covers your neck. What else? That's mostly it for sun protection. We have some equipment that is open cabbed. We'll have umbrellas on top of them in certain places to cover operators. All right. Second question, piggybacking off of that, Denise asked, how do they handle working in the heat all day? So kind of building off of Megan's question there. For one, you have to work your way up to it. You can't just, if you've been, and I'm not picking on anybody, but whatever your job is, if it's inside, you've been working at Costco or in an office, or you're getting out of school or something like that, or you've been driving a truck, where you're in the air conditioning all day. You can't just strike out in August and July in the South and start working on a paving crew or working in highway construction or anything outside. You have to acclimate to it. That's something that is it's a focus for OSHA right now. They have a new heat rule that they issued, I guess last year, I think, that's going into effect this year. Or maybe it's already in effect. Can't remember. Either way, their recommendation is, I know Cal OSHA has this already out in California. If somebody has not worked outside at all, and the temperature or the heat index is going to be above X, 80 degrees, 85 degrees, something like that, you would want to acclimate them. So you'd start them working outside 2 hours a day, and then you kind of increase about 20% a day after that. So, rough idea would be start at 2 hours a day, and then the next day 4, and the next day 6, and the next day 8, getting up to a full day. And so, you got to acclimate to it for one. The other idea is that you got to take care of yourself while you're there. So hydrating is one of them. We provide water for everybody. And you're in the heat of the year, and especially on an asphalt crew where that asphalt is somewhere in the 350 degree area. It takes a lot of water to stay hydrated. You're doing a lot of sweating throughout the day. So a person is supposed to consume between 2 and 3 of those 16 or 20 ounce bottles of water every hour. So if you got a 10-person crew, each person's drinking 2 to 3 bottles of water an hour. You start doing that math for a 10-hour day. It's a lot of water. In addition to that, as you're sweating, you're losing electrolytes. So we always want to provide some sort of sugar-free way to get electrolytes back in you. Typically, it's some sort of powder that you add to a drink, shake it up. You don't want to just have a cooler of that stuff, because then you're drinking too much of it all day. You really need some of that electrolyte stuff about every 3rd or 4th bottle of water, something like that. In addition to that, taking care of yourself. So drinking plenty of water at night when you get home to rehydrate, looking for shade while you're working during the day, getting shade when you can. You can't always get it, but get it when you can. Taking breaks, go sit back in the truck, let the air blow on you a little bit, kind of cool off. Finding some sort of other man-made shade. Sometimes we utilize tents, fans. Years ago, we did some work inside some of the refineries down in Texas, and they would actually have the cooling trailers. They had this, kind of like a mobile home type trailer. You'd go in and had some misting fans and cool air and all that kind of stuff. So there's a variety of things out there to make it more hospitable. If you're asphalt paving in the middle of summer, it's never really fun. But there are definitely ways to make it more manageable. So good questions. Okay, Ian had a question. He said, will you get someone from OSHA or MSHA on the podcast to be interviewed? Couple of different answers to that. One, we'd love to. Right now, I don't really have a lot of street cred to make some of those things happen. We've talked to some people with a couple of different agencies and hoping to be able to get them in at some point, as long as everybody's got the comfort level that, we're not trying to play a trick on them or anything, and we're not. So yeah, we're going to try to do some of that as we go, and hopefully we get more popular. We'll be able to do that. I don't know about the MSHA side. Maybe. I don't do a whole lot of MSHA stuff. I can barely spell it. But you never know. Maybe that'll be something we branch out into at some point. All right, next question comes from Buddy. It says, is there a certain distance the cones have to be from the road worker and the traffic to keep the employees safe? That's a great question because, you think about working on a roof or something like that where you've got a potential for a big fall. You're going to have some sort of system there, cones or barriers or barricades or something like that to let you know don't go past this point or to protect you from a fall. And so you'd think, all right, so we should have something like that on the roadway. And sometimes we do. If it's a longer term project, we're digging a bunch of stuff out. You'll see the concrete barrier wall. That is there to be a barrier, literally, between us and traffic. Keeps traffic away from us and keeps us out of traffic. And those work really well. The challenge with those on faster moving projects like asphalt paving is that it takes a while to move in and set barrier wall and also to pull it back up. A lot of times it would take longer to put the barrier wall down than it would take to actually do the job. So most of the time, if you see temporary work zones, things for, like paving operations or striping or something like that, milling operations, you're typically going to see cones or drums. And there is absolutely nothing that, no matter how far apart they are, how far they are from people, there's nothing that keeps a car from entering the work zone and hitting somebody. The cones and the drums do not prevent that in any way. We very much are counting on the traveling public to, for lack of a better term, police themselves, follow the guidance of the traffic control and work their way safely through the job. So because of that, there is not necessarily a minimum distance that we stay away or anything like that. So if you think about an interstate, you got 2 lanes going one way, 2 lanes going the other, grass median in the middle. So if we're paving one of those lanes, you're driving in the other lane, inside or outside, whatever that is. If you think about that, if we're paving one of the lanes, the cones are right there on those center skip line stripes. You're driving on the other side. So if we're going to pave right up to that, there's not any way to stay away from that. Whether it's milling operations or paving operations, those work their way right up to that center line, and people have to be out there working on those center lines. So we absolutely try to minimize the people that are out there. We try to tell people if you don't have work on that side, to stay on the shoulder side, stay away from traffic as much as possible. But there's always, for the most part, there's always going to be 1 or 2 or 3 that are going to be required to work on that side in some way. So it is very, very hard. We do have some restrictions, just kind of FYI, I guess. There's only so far that we can squeeze a lane down to. On the interstate, I'm pulling this from way back, but it seems like about 8 feet is the smallest we could make it. Maybe it's 10. I need to check on that. But there's only so small that we can squeeze the lane down to on an interstate or any state highways or other roads and still have traffic freely flowing through there. So sometimes we will try to take advantage of that and give ourselves a little bit of room. Sometimes you see on an interstate where you've got a wide shoulder out there on the lane you're driving in, you may see they push those cones or the barrels out into your lane. It feels like a little bit, but they're trying to get you to use the shoulder, and it gives them a little more room to work safely over on the lane they've got closed. Okay, this question is from Tina. It says, I'd love to know how often they are nearly hit by distracted drivers or drivers who completely ignore signs and speed limit posting. can they report this? And she talks about a specific case where a road in her area, they're putting a raised median in, and because everybody's used to utilizing that median for turning or whatever else, it's sad how many people are just ignoring the signs or ignoring the traffic control and going through there very, very closely to where some of these people are working. So that is another good question, and there are, without trying to make it more complicated than it is, there's a handful of levels going from the local level, which would be the company doing the job, and local law enforcement, local DOT, all the way up through the federal level. On the local level, I'm making an assumption that most companies do the same thing that other companies I've worked for have done. So pretty much any incident or close call or what we call a near miss, which is a misnomer because a near miss really is a near hit. But that's just what they're called, and I can't help that. But we want everyone to report incidents and near misses, and we track those to see, what kind of things we're having happen on the job, whether it's internal things that are happening. Think about things like slips, trips, and falls, and electrical issues or whatever. And then there's external things that are happening inside the work zone with third-party outside traffic. So we track those to see what kind of things are going on. Your supervisor types that are on these jobs, there's always a plan for traffic control, and it's laid out ahead of time before the work really begins. But one of the key parts of traffic control is that once it's there, you've got to drive through it from both directions. You've got to observe it. You've got to watch and listen for what other traffic is doing, because it may be there's some gaps, there's some holes, no pun intended, sometimes literally in there that we need to plug to make the traffic control more effective. So the way we always think about it is think about if you're, your grandmother or a new driver, your child or something like that, was driving through there and had no idea what any of this stuff meant, would they be able to easily navigate? If they can't, then there's something we need to fix. We need some more guidance, some more signs, or maybe we've overcomplicated it. Maybe there's too many signs. We run into that issue sometimes. There are signs that the state requires to be there for the entirety of the job, and then there's signs we're required to put up because of the particular operation we're doing at the time, and sometimes they don't always jive together, or you end up with 10 signs in a row you've got to read, and it just doesn't make sense. So that is a challenge in itself. But to get back to the question, so can they report it? Yes. We track those, we look at them, and we make adjustments. We fix things when they are out of place. That's just good traffic control management. It's an ongoing process. So you may drive through a job and see somebody hit a barrel or a cone, or a string of them, is sometimes the case. And if that happens on a well-managed job, you have people who are designated to check traffic control and fix these things. And it should be happening. Because if you don't, you get sued for it. But if you're seeing these things and they're knocked over and out of place and all that for days on end, that's different. And I'm certainly not going to say that somebody else is not well managed. That may or may not be the case. But there's a variety of reasons. But traffic control is something that has to be maintained frequently. All right, so at the next level up, the DOT, so just pick a state, any state. The state itself, the DOT, the Department of Transportation, will divide itself into regions in some sort of way. And so each one of those regions is like a small little DOT kingdom in there. Kingdom is probably not the right word. They are keeping track of the projects they have in their regions and what kind of near misses or incidents they're seeing that get reported to them either through their own people, through contractors, or from incident responses, right, from emergency medical services. So they're keeping track on those things on a slightly longer scale, right? They're not seeing them immediately and making immediate action like we were talking about at the local level, but they're seeing these things and thinking about them month to month, quarter to quarter, and saying, all right, we are having a variety of incidents on X job, or we're getting a lot of rear end collisions on this one job over here. And they'll start looking at that and working with the local level, whoever's over that job from the DOT and also the contractor and figuring out, hey, what's going on here? How do we make this better? Then you get up to the state level itself. Most state DOTs are going to be looking at these things and figuring out where their trouble issues are. It's a lot of time outside of work zone stuff. This is how they're figuring out where the next project needs to be, right? Where are we having issues with traffic in some sort of way, whatever that is, to where we need to make some changes. So as you go up from there, you get to the federal level. These things absolutely do get tracked. Now it's garbage in, garbage out, right? It's like a computer. Well, it is a computer, probably. Whatever information it gets is the information it's going to use. So it doesn't know what it doesn't know. So basically, they're only able to aggregate this information based on the information they have. And it's getting better and better. More and more of these things are getting reported all the way up to where they can track it and figure out what kind of things are going on. So if you have some free time and you'd like to do so, go to the website workzonesafety.org. That is a information clearinghouse for work zone safety, for work zone incidents, and kind of breaking down what kind of things are happening, how many incidents, how many injuries, how many fatalities, what kind of injuries, what kind of incidents. Is it commercial vehicles? Is it personal vehicles? Just all kinds of different things. So there's a ton of information on there, and I would encourage you, if you're interested in this kind of thing, or just kind of, I don't know, you want an idea of, what these numbers actually look like, how many people, how many construction workers actually die in work zone incidents every year. It's somewhere around, last few years, it's averaged right around 100. There was a time in the mid-teens where it was between about 120 and 140. But anyway, there's a ton of information in there about work zone injuries and accidents. Great question. A handful of people have asked some version of this question, so we'll just address it all in one. Corey, looks like Emily. I'm trying to find, there's a couple others too. Apologize if I don't have your name in there. So why does it take so long? Why does a project last forever? And that is the question that everybody always wants to know. So here's the short answer. I don't know. The longer answer is it's a variety of things. Some of them are the fault of somebody. Some of them are not. So let's kind of talk through a couple of them. All right. So from a contractor standpoint, one that we see a lot and have for years and years and years is we win a bid for a job. We're ready to start a job. We've got a contract. We're ready to mobilize and get started. And a lot of the utilities on the job, electrical, think about new power poles that have to be moved from where they were out to a more suitable place, gas lines, fiber optic lines, all that kind of stuff, new signals, whatever. A lot of that stuff has to be done before we get started working. And it's not always done by the time we're ready to go. So you may actually have the signs set up, something that says that there is road work ahead. This is now a work zone. But there may not be any work going on. And it may sit that way with nothing going on for months. And that would be one of those where the contractor can't start work because, trying to think, the simplest way to think of it would be, I can't start my work because the area I'm going to work in is not in a condition where I can start work. So you can't get out there and start tearing out the roadway or the shoulder when the shoulder is what's holding up the power poles or something like that need to be moved. In addition to that, there could be errors. I mean, I can remember jobs where when I was still surveying, we'd start laying out storm drain pipe, and you get down there and start laying something out and you go, wait a minute, this is going to be sticking up out of the road. The pipe's going to be, sticking out of the finished elevation of the road. That's not going to work. You can't drain storm drainage like that. And so you find out there's some sort of error in the plans. And so that has to be resolved. And it takes a lot of back and forth and working with your agency, whatever that is, the state or county, whoever, to make that work out. That can cause a delay as well that, it's not really one of those where we're pointing fingers, but it's just you can't do any work because if we did any work, we'd have to pull it all back up. Now, when you see people on site and it looks like nothing's going on, there's a few reasons typically for that as well. It may be they're just lazy and not doing anything. It's a possibility. But in addition to that, if it's a paving crew, milling crew, they're putting down stone, something like that, they are at the mercy of the trucks a lot of times, right? Paving crew can be really good and can pave a mile, 2 miles, whatever, a night, but they've got to actually have the trucks and the supply to do it. So think about it as a factory, okay? It just so happens this factory moves down the roadway. But the factory is making an asphalt road. So for this factory, you got to have raw materials coming in, right? And then we've got to process those, and then we are going to spit out a finished product at the end, okay? In this case, the asphalt coming on the trucks is the raw material. And so we can't actually produce unless we have that raw material. And a variety of reasons can make it to where you're not getting that material on time. So there may not be enough trucks. That has been a nationwide challenge for the most part is having enough truck drivers. In addition to that, you could have, there's heavy traffic somewhere else, and that's slowing the cycle times of the trucks down to where they're not keeping the paver moving all the time. You could also have the asphalt plant itself that's, making that raw material to get to you may break down, or maybe it's running slow, or maybe they're running asphalt for 3 other customers also, so your trucks are having to wait. All of those things could slow your trucks down. And so if you're the 10 guys on an asphalt paving crew, or the 5 or 6 guys on a shoulder stone crew or something like that, if there are no trucks to deliver your product, there's not really anything for you to do but kind of stand there and lean on a shovel or find some shade, get some water and things like that. Most guys, you typically don't get a set lunch like, hey, we're going to break at 11:30 and go eat lunch. It's really you more eat when you can. So there's a break in the trucks there. Hey, I'm going to sit down and eat in the shade and eat a sandwich. Another thing that makes it take so long is just the process of building a road. Building new road does take time. It may look like nothing is going on and time is being wasted. There's a lot of factors that go into it. Even things like cure time. So if it's a concrete road, just because they poured concrete yesterday or 3 days ago doesn't mean you can put traffic on it right away. That concrete has to cure, and it takes time for that to happen. Some of the base material that goes on the bottom before you build the road on top, some of that stuff has to set and cure before you can get on top of it. Sometimes it's subcontractors, right? You're waiting on subcontractors to get in and they've got a couple of things they have to do, and we can't do anything else until they do that. People always talk about, just keep the trains running on time. And that's kind of what's happening here. It is a skill and an art form at the same time to get all of these different items, whether it be contractors, whether it be the different steps in the job, whatever it is, to make all that stuff happen brick by brick by brick and make it all just stack up. It is a task, and that is called project management. That's Robert talked about it some on his episode. Some of the ways that they try to keep that stuff moving and be as productive and efficient as possible. There's a lot of excuses right there of why a job may take forever. And there's many, many more. There are so many moving parts in just overlaying an asphalt roadway or interstate or adding new lanes or something like that. There's so much that goes into it that a variety of things could happen, even things that are no fault of anybody. Robert mentioned in his episode, they hit they dug into an unmarked cemetery. Nobody knew it was there. That absolutely will shut a job down for a while. So, there's a variety of things that can happen, and no 2 jobs are the same. Okay, question from James. How do interstates get numbered? It's a great question. So if you'll remember back to junior high when we started doing, Cartesian coordinates. Is that the right word? Basically where you draw the little, 90-degree graph there, and you've got, X goes across the bottom and Y goes up and down, and the bottom left starts at 0. If you go to the right, your X increases. If you go up, your Y increases. Remember that? The interstate system numbering works essentially the same way. So if you start in the south and the west, so think about Southern California, the interstate going east and west from there, I-10, okay? Even numbers go east and west, so that's I-10. As you go north, you get I-20, I-30, I-40, all the way up. It's I-80 or I-90, whatever it is. All right. And so if you think about going north and south there, from LA, you have, they call it the 5, which would be I-5 for the rest of us, I guess. But anyway, so that's starting at 5, an odd number, but it's a low number, right? And as you move to the east, it would increase. So you would end up with I-45 through the center of the country, running north and south, I-65, running up through Alabama and central Tennessee, and then I-95. You get all the way over to the East Coast. So the idea is they increase south to north, west to east. Even numbers go east and west. Odd numbers go north and south. So that's an easy way to kind of, it's not going to tell you where you are in the world, but it's an easy way to kind of figure out roughly if for some reason you were blindfolded and shipped somewhere and then set down on the edge of the interstate there and you had to figure out where you were. This will give you a very, very rough idea. I hope that doesn't happen to you. So in addition, maybe if this does happen to you, how are we going to get you found? Okay, so you figured out what interstate you're on. Let's say you're on I-10, okay? You see the little blue and red shield. It's got the white number on it, and it says I-10. Okay, cool. So where in the world on I-10 am I? So as you're driving along, you'll see exits, and those exits are numbered. They also are numbered from 0 moving forward. All right, moving from west to east or from south to north. So let's just use as an example, let's take I-40 coming across Tennessee, okay? So when I cross the bridge cross the Mississippi River Bridge and come into Memphis there, looking at the pyramid, that's exit 1, okay? As I work my way all the way across the state on I-40, it's going to increase. So when I get into the Nashville area, I'm going to be somewhere in the exit 200s, okay? Going to be roughly 200 miles along I-40 from the state line at the Mississippi River. And that'll keep going all the way across until you come out the other side on the northeast side of the state. I don't remember what number that is. All right, and the same thing happens going south to north, right? For every state, it restarts at 0 at the state line and increases as you go west to east, south to north. So if you were driving I-55 through Mississippi, you come out of Louisiana, and as soon as you cross into Mississippi on I-55 going north, first exit will be exit 1. And it'll keep on going all the way through Jackson, all the way to Memphis, and the last exit will be right there before you cross into, right there, the State Line Road. I don't remember the exit for it, but just kind of rough guess, it's going to be somewhere around about exit 300. But so you'd be roughly 300 miles north. So that's a rough way to understand that. And so that can help you figure out which way you're going if for some reason you can't see the sun or any other thing that would tell you which way you're going. If you're driving on the interstate, it's really important if you have a wreck or you break down. And we're getting way off base here, but hopefully this will help you out. You ever break down on the side of the road, you call AAA or you got to call the police or whatever it is, you're on the interstate, they're going to say, "Where are you?" "Well, I'm on I-40. Okay, where?" And you're going to go, "I'm a few miles past. Where was that?" An easy way to tell them is first things first. Which direction are you going on the interstate so they know which way to be looking for you? Are you eastbound or westbound, northbound or southbound? Don't worry about, has the road I'm on, has this east-west interstate, has it kind of curved back to the north or to the south? Don't worry about that. It is the general direction that the road is going in. Are we going east generally? Are the numbers getting bigger? Or are we going west generally? Are the numbers getting smaller? And same with anything north and south. So, if you had a breakdown on I-85, am I at exit, or exit doesn't matter, are my exit numbers increasing going, all right, that means I'm northbound. Are they decreasing? I'm going southbound. And the next thing is you got to know a general idea of where northbound, southbound, eastbound, westbound you are. That's when typically on the median, sometimes they're on the shoulder, you will every now and then see decimalized numbers. And those are telling you every 0.2 miles along the roadway. So if I cross over mile marker 170, I'll then see 170.2, 170.4, 170.6, all the way up until 171. So I'll give you a pretty good idea too. That's that makes the job of an EMS, roadside service, or whoever, makes it really easy on the interstate if you can tell them, all right, I'm at mile marker 170.4 eastbound on I-40. That guy can find you. All right, so thank you, James, for asking a 5-worded question. Only 5 words in it, and I turned it into about 10 minutes of talking. Thank you. Thanks to James. He also asked one other question I'll go ahead and get to. It's a much shorter answer. How much do flaggers get paid? I have no idea. One thing I don't do is handle pay for anybody. But I can tell you 2 things. 1, not enough. They most definitely should make more money. And 2, the reason for that is because it is one of the most underappreciated jobs out there. And it's also one of the most dangerous. When you drive through a job site and you see somebody flagging traffic, whoever it is, you're probably sitting there thinking like, man, where'd they find this brain dead junkie? Or something to that extent. But this person is the first line of defense for the people working inside the job. The very first person you're going to come across coming into this job is the flagger. That guy or gal is the one who is hopefully providing good guidance for you as far as what to do, but is also there to be the warning bell if something happens. If somebody speeds through that stop sign there, his flagging station, or is yelling stuff out the window and throwing stuff or whatever it is, that guy is there to let everybody else know what's going on. A lot of times the person flagging in a lot of cases will be one of the newest people on the crew, which is always unfortunate that you take the person that has the least experience and put them out there to be the face of your company, seeing everybody as they come in and giving the first impression of what your company is like and how they train people. So that is, it sucks that is the case, but usually that's how it works out. But if you're in a company and you're training flaggers, that is a very, very valuable position in a lot of ways. I'm not saying it's the most valuable, and they're I don't know what they actually make, but take care of your flaggers. Give them breaks, give them some water. Tell them you appreciate it because nobody else is doing that. All right, our friend of the show, Max Watson, gave me a few questions when I asked him, and he was kind enough to also give us the answers to them, which is a very Max thing to do. Thank you. So one of them was, how do you stand the smell? Well, his answer was that it smells like money, and that's what everybody tells us. It's what I've been told since I started in this business. When you smell asphalt, that smells like money. But think about it like, if you work at a wastewater treatment facility, if you, maybe you work at the stockyards, if that still exists in some places, or, maybe you work the perfume counter at Dillard's. Like, nobody wants to smell any of those things all day long, but the people that are there all day get used to it, right? And that's the simple answer. All right, Max also asked, why is some asphalt white looking as it gets older and some of it's brown? And that's a really great question. I think a lot of people don't think about that sometimes, but basically most of the southern U.S. along the Gulf Coast does not have any limestone. To make asphalt, they would use gravel, clay gravel. And so, it all looks black when it's brand new, but over time, sun, weather, tires running on it, that top coat there starts to fade a little bit, and you'll start to see what kind of rock is in there. So if it looks more of a brown, kind of almost coppery looking, that's going to be a clay gravel that's used as the aggregate in there. If it's more of a white or gray looking, that's going to be limestone. You don't see as much of the clay gravel anymore because between rail, truck, barge, you can pretty much get limestone anywhere, and they ship it all over the place. But yeah, back in the day, there was a ton of asphalt roads that were used with clay gravel. Okay, Craig asked, how does the state decide what company gets a job? That's it starts to get out of my pay grade just a little bit, but at a very basic level, all of this is low bid public work. There's no secret to it. Nothing's hidden. It is all publicly available information. And so the state will say, hey, we've got X road. We're going to pave. We're going to reconstruct. We're going to build a bridge, whatever the case may be. And here are the plans for it. And we're going to bid on it on this date. So any contractor that is qualified with the state will, and that wants to, can pull these plans, look at them, and can make their bid and say, hey, we can build this. We can do it for X amount of money in Y number of days. And so on that bid day, everybody turns those in, and it's, like I said, it's publicly available. So in most states, I'm not familiar with all states, but in most states, you can either dial in or get on the computer and actually hear the bids read out loud for each job, and you'll know right then who the winner is. Barring any unforeseen things, somebody didn't cross a T or dot an I or whatever, that's who gets the job. And in addition to that, some states make it a little more publicly available. They'll list out the jobs that are ongoing locally and maybe how much money is in them and how long they're supposed to take and things like that. All of it's publicly available. Some of it is easier to find than others. Piggybacking onto that, Gene asked, in Florida, they have to post the end date of the project at the construction zone, which was awesome. Does Tennessee have a way to look up the project time or the projected time? For instance, they're 4-laning Highway 70 past Watertown. How can one look up how long it's going to take, cost of production, etc.? That's a great question. I'm going to give you the short answer, and I'm going to give you the long answer. Short answer is it's all publicly available information. It's out there somewhere. The longer answer is I know a lot of states do that where they'll put the sign up and it'll say, this is who's doing the job, this is how much money the project is, and this is the projected end date. I think Tennessee has talked about doing some of that, but just every state is different. Every state DOT is different, and their requirements for signs on the job and things like that are different. Just as an example, so in Tennessee, you'll see road work ahead, and then you'll see all the normal construction signs. Whereas in Texas, you'll see road work ahead, and there's a sign there that says the name and the address, mailing address of whatever company has the work. In Florida, like you said, you'll see those signs up there that say, the $13 million rehab, and it's going to be projected finish date of summer of 26. Just every state does it a little differently. So yeah, the information for Tennessee is out there. I don't know exactly where it is, but fingers crossed, with any luck, I'll get a chance to talk to somebody that's more in line with that does that type of work, whether they're with the state or contractors that do that, and I'll try to find the answer to that specifically for Tennessee. Buddy asked, if the safety man is not present at the time, does any employee have the right to stop work if they think something is unsafe until they get with the safety man and discuss the situation? In a very generalized sense, this is not specific to any company that I know of, but everywhere that I've ever worked has been the same. Every person on the job has stop work authority. It has to be that way because who is responsible for safety? It's all of us, right? So everybody has to have that authority, even the guy who it's his first day on the job. He may not actually know what we're doing and how to do it, so he may call stop just because he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. So it's really important that everybody has that and also understands they have the ability, but also the responsibility to call stop if something doesn't look right. And then, does it have to come all the way to the safety person? Every company is going to be different. But if everybody is taking safety upon themselves, then a lot of times it never gets to the safety person, right? If somebody calls stop on site, you got good managers there or good people working on the crew who are going to, address it, what's going on. Let's figure out how to fix it. And then they're going to move on. That's just part of what you do during the day. All right. Paul asked, what constitutes a work zone? 2 recent road trips, I went through areas where no visible work was underway. One instance, the work was being done at a rest area 100 yards from the road. So this is another good question that I'm going to give you more than one answer to, because that's how we roll. So the first answer, the easy answer is when you're driving down the roadway, whatever that roadway is, you'll see road work ahead. When you see that first sign, consider that the start of your quote-unquote work zone. As you keep on driving, you get through everything, you'll see one that says end road work. That sign comes 500 feet. It's supposed to come 500 feet past the last work that's going on. You pass that, you are now out of the quote-unquote work zone. Now, longer answer to your question. Those particular signs, the road work ahead and the things that get you into the job and then the end road work sign, those are put in before any kind of work on the job commences. That's part of the requirement is the signs go up first. Now, as different things happen on the job, there are temporary work zones that may be put in place. So they may be working on an off-ramp, so they're going to close a ramp. They may be working on the inside shoulder, so they'll have the inside lane closed. Those are all temporary temporary work zones when those go up. So when you see those, it's all a work zone. It is all a place where work is going on. But those may be the temporary ones for specific things that are going on. The bigger ones, the road work ahead, road work half mile, road work 1,500 feet, begin road work, end road work, all that very generalized stuff is what tells you that you are entering and exiting a work zone. So if you think about a big project, an interstate or something like that, there may be work that's going on at, like you mentioned in your question there, a rest area. They may be doing work over there. So the interstate itself that you're on is all part of that project from that first sign to the last sign, but it just may so happen that the work you're seeing that day is the work they're doing over there by that rest area, and there's nothing impacting the roadway. It's a work zone, but it's also not a work zone. It's a work zone, but it's not where the work is going on, which sounds nice because it rhymes. Josh asked, do you actually sign the JSA? Yes, sign the JSA. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. That's a very important thing to remember. Okay, so Mike asked, when a road goes from 2 to 4 lanes, how do you get the land and how do you decide which side to get? That's a great question. Long before any of the construction actually takes place, the road itself has right-of-way, okay? And the right-of-way width, how wide the right-of-way is going to vary. On the interstate, it varies a lot. On your public roads and state roads and things, it may not vary as much. So just some rough, easy ways to get a general idea of the right-of-way. So on a state road or a county road, something like that, usually, the right-of-way is going to be measured from the center line of the road, usually. And then typically the back of the road ditch, or basically where the power lines are, the power poles, that's going to be a very rough idea of where the right-of-way is. Please don't go out there and start marking your own right-of-way on your property. This is in no way professional surveyor advice. On the interstate, it's typically a little bit easier. You'll see fence line. You'll see the roughly 4x4 concrete post sticking up a little bit out of the ground. Those are the right-of-way markers, and a lot of times you'll see RW stamped in those or on the sides. It varies a lot on the interstates. So to answer the question, a lot of your roadways have a wide enough right-of-way already that when you go in there and you're going to widen from 2 to 4 lanes, the state, the county, the whoever may actually own enough right-of-way already to where you can just build inside that right-of-way. You can shift your alignment of the road to the left or to the right to fit inside that. Now, in a case where, you had a little 2-lane road and maybe there wasn't enough right-of-way, they're going to have to buy some more. The way that typically works is, remember again that every state is different in their process, and some are a little more heavy-handed with the eminent domain than others. But in a very, very generalized way, you've got a road that exists, or we've got a new road that we're going to do, and it's going to go through the country here and connect up 2 towns, and there's no road there now. So if we're going to do that, your DOT will establish, all right, this is the center line. This is where we want the road to go. And so at that point, a lot of surveying goes on to figure out who owns all the land, how much land they have. And, you're doing research on deeds to see, if other easements are there already, all these kind of things to really check and see what's there. Once they make a decision on the actual alignment, then, they'll go through and create a legal description that says, all right, this is the little sliver of land that we're taking from you, or we're going to buy from you is a better term, because they typically would buy those, and they establish some sort of fair market value for that. And so they would, buy that, and then that becomes part of the county or state or whoever right away. And that's a 30,000 foot view, back of the napkin explanation of that. All right, last question. We'll do a fun one. Ian says, do you have any hotel recommendations? Well, food recommendations are a lot easier for me. Bathroom recommendations are a lot easier. As a matter of fact, go into pretty much any hotel and just act like you know where you're going and head down the hallway, one direction or the other, and you will find the restrooms there. Those are usually in pretty decent shape. But as far as a hotel chain or anything like that, I don't have a good recommendation. They really are personal preference. I've done the Hilton Honors thing for several years now. And I don't know that they're any better than any others. Being diamond status sounds great. It's very impressive to my wife. But it hasn't gotten me a whole lot unless I've gone on trips. It is, those benefits have been helpful when I've gone on trips out of the country. Going to a random Hampton Inn and, off the interstate in BFE, Texas, hasn't done me a lot of good. I hear a lot of the same from others, other people that I've worked with. Everybody's got their own, right? They're the Marriott Rewards or IHG or something like that. It's really personal preference. I'm kind of at a point in my life. I'm not gambling on a place that all the doors open to the outside, kind of a no-tell, motel looking place. I'm past the point in my life where I'm going to try to get a good night's sleep in there. But a couple of requirements. Shower's got to be clean because I'm definitely going to use that. And the air condition has to actually stay under 70. You have to watch now. They have the motion activated thermostats. And so when you're asleep and motionless at night, it'll default back to 74, 75. You'll wake up sweating. Maybe we'll do a podcast one day on all of the woes of staying in hotels. I have experienced a lot of them. All right, so we're going to stop there for Q&A. There's still questions on here, and we got some more that'll come in. So we may do this again sometime if we run into another challenge like this where either through my fault or just because it happens sometimes, we just don't have a guest. Maybe we'll bring somebody in sometime to answer some of these questions too. Take the load off of me. All right, let's segue into our food pick for this episode. Okay, special thanks to me for answering questions. Also, special thanks to everybody who did pass along questions. I kind of did that, I know, last minute, asking folks for some input, things they were curious about, and everybody kind of came through. And what is this? Oh, there's one question left down here in the bottom of the old mailbag. Let's see what it says. Oh, it says, wow, how do you maintain having this sexy of a voice and working every day? It must be very, very hard. Yes, it's very, very difficult. It's signed anonymous. How did that get in there? Okay. Moving along. My food pick this week is Blue Duck Kitchen and Bar in Livingston, Texas. I found this place one day, passing through on my way either to or back from San Antonio. Can't remember. But I was not feeling any fast food, and I had a little bit of time, so I rode through into the middle of Livingston, Texas, just to try to pick out something maybe local, and found this place. And it was a little breath of fresh air. I love me some good house-made chips. This place did not disappoint. And also a chicken salad sandwich is something that can be really good or a little questionable. And I give theirs 2 big thumbs up. So if you're ever in Livingston, Texas, don't hesitate to go by the Blue Duck Kitchen and Bar and tell them whatever you want to. It won't matter. All right, that wraps up another episode. Our next episode will be back to normal. We've got a handful of people in a variety of places lined up, and we're going to have some really interesting interviews coming up over the next couple of months, next few episodes. So please stay tuned to those. If you enjoy what we do, tell somebody about the Safety Man Comin podcast. Tell them to go find us on socials. That would be Facebook or Instagram. You can find us at Safety Man Comin. They can email us with suggestions or questions at safetymancomin@gmail.com. There's no G on the end of Safety Man Comin. Special thanks to Tennessee Tucker for our music and Amelia Hall for our cover art. Thanks for your time. We appreciate you listening. And join us next episode as we meet another person behind the barrels on Safety Man Comin.